All right, Facebook Live. Welcome to Pint of Comics. It's a very special episode, and we had someone else jump on.
What
looks
happened?
Looks like Shamar. I don't see him, but he's
and
there.
He's on mute. There's
And
no video, and he's on mute.
All right, we'll give him a second. If you are tuning in, we are not talking about Friday the 13th tonight, even though you see Stu. I know,
That's
Stu. I'm
absurd.
sorry. Well, next week. So Tuesday night of next week, we will be doing Friday the 13th. 2009, the Sam Winchester version.
Snyder cut.
the Snyder cut. It is 4 hours long. At one point, Jason drinks a fifth of vodka, walking out a jetty, and then smashes it into the ocean, which is very irresponsible for an ecological superhero. But we'll get to that. We'll get to that in a second. So I'm going to go around the horn. I'm going to introduce everybody to everybody, and then we're going to start talking about the Zack Snyder cut of Justice League. And we'll get into that in a second. So first of all, over I'm going to point the wrong way, so I'll go this way. Over there is a hashtag Stewart cut. If you watch our Friday the 13th videos, you know Rob Stewart. We call him Stu. He had never had pastrami before in his life. He didn't know what corned beef was. We taught him all about that. You can find him at www.swoproductions.com, and it's a great site. Great pop culture stuff. He has all these great articles, wrestling, comic books, movies, TV shows. He pretty much goes the gamut of pop culture. And coming pretty soon, and I'm super excited about this because Stu got his start. That's how I met him through podcasting. He will be returning to the world of podcasting. Do you want to talk about that a little bit, Stu?
Yeah, I have the Stu World Order podcast coming. I have the first 2 episodes recorded so far. So one is pretty much completely edited and the other one is still untouched. I'll get there. But it is going to be solely based on comic book movies. Every episode, I'm going to have a guest on, most from the podcast realm. My guest randomly picks a comic book movie from my list of 125. They just give me numbers and I tell them what they chose. And then we watch that movie and review it.
Now, I'm excited about this because Stu knows that I've got a lot going on in my life, and he gave me a 3 option. He gave me 3 numbers to pick. I picked 3 numbers, and he gave me the choices to pick. And I picked a movie that I would never normally want to talk about. It's a movie I saw with our other buddy there, Lou, on the bottom. Lou and I saw this together. I was disappointed. I've only seen it once in my life. So I'm kind of looking forward to rewatching it, 10 years later, to see if I change my mind.
Ooh, I feel like I know what movie it is.
It's Thor. We're gonna do Thor.
Ooh, yeah, the first Thor movie.
First Thor movie. Thor and Thor Dark World are absolute garbage movies. But I'm looking forward to at least watching Thor again and maybe seeing.
Yeah, I've same as you. I think I saw Thor one time in theaters and never since. So
yeah, so I'm excited about that. So thank you for that. Now the other 2 options I was given were Spider-Man, the Tobey Maguire original, which I love. Stu absolutely hates.
I despise that movie. I'm so happy you didn't make me watch that.
And the one that I was most naturally inclined to pick because I love the movie, but I didn't pick it because I wanted it to be a little bit more, I think, interesting to talk about was Captain America: The First Avenger, which I love. And I could talk about that. And maybe we'll do that on Pint of Comics at some point. But now underneath him is the man, the myth, the legend. He's our video editor. He gaming guru, all that good stuff. It's Lou. Lou, what's going on, man?
Oh, nothing. Just another long day in the trenches.
Yeah, no, I feel that, man. I feel that.
This is the highlight right here.
Yeah.
I was looking forward to this all day.
Awesome,
know, right?
Awesome. Yeah. I like how I've been looking forward to this all day too. And then a minute 32 before it started, I decided to fuck with my microphone and got knocked out of my computer. So if you are showing up, Vinny and Chris and all the people that show up to a lot of our stuff, thank you for waiting that extra 7 minutes. I wasn't being Axl Rose and being a diva. I fucked up and got knocked out of my own.
It was actually Cyborg.
Yeah,
we forgot to bring John his green M&Ms. He wasn't coming on stage.
Nope. No. If I don't have a 36-inch Sanyo TV in that green room when I get off stage, you fuckers are gonna pay. Now, on the bottom other side from Lou, we've got now. I'm going to say now it's Andrew Tejada. Okay.
Yes.
He's got what is it? Arate? Is it Arate?
Arate. Yeah.
Arate. Okay. So he's got that on his name. It's Andrew. Now Andrew is what you would call he's a podcaster who. Let's go through this real quick. Our buddies at Forgotten Cinema, and yet another MCU podcast, Cracking One Open, Nomcast. They have a grouping called Forgotten Entertainment. Lloyd and I, the Pint Guys, are going to be doing a podcast coming summer of 2021. There are 2 podcasts coming summer of 2021, ours and Andrew's. Ours is on the QT, 10 episodes about the Quentin Tarantino film lexicon. We've already recorded a few episodes of that. Now, we have yet another MCU podcast, which just ended, which covered the MCU movies. We have yet another Star Wars podcast, which just started, and they just put out their Return of the Jedi episode. Andrew, what are you guys covering? Because this is interesting.
We are covering yet another DC animated podcast. So we are going to go through the new DC animated movies. There are 16 in this new continuity. So we're going to go through them all, from the Aquamans to the 17 Batman movies contained in the universe, and just give our opinions. And my best friend from middle school, elementary school, Shamar, is going to be on there with me. And we're going to talk about the comic influences and how they relate to the movie, and where the movie really failed or succeeded in capturing that essence.
I look forward to it. Now, I was wondering, because now you explained something right there, because when I initially read, I think, Mike Field's description, or when he told me, he said they're covering the 16 DC animated movies. And I didn't say anything to Mike, but I'm like, there's a shit ton more than 16. So you're doing like 16 that are in the current continuity they're doing.
Yes.
Okay.
That ended in a big way last year. So now it's a good time to look back and see what were the high points, what were the low points, and, everything in between.
And John, while you were mucking with your microphone, he reassured me that Batman Ninja is not part of this 16 movie continuity.
No.
If you want to find out about all the little monkeys that form together to form a giant monkey.
So Stu was on a podcast called Ghost of the Stratosphere that's no longer, and they would do comic books and they would do some movies and stuff. And they did an episode on Batman Ninja, and I listened to the podcast, and just from listening to it, I determined there would be no way on earth I would ever watch Batman Ninja. It sounded like a terrible experience. Terrible experience.
Quick question then. If there was Batman Ninja and an animated Batman Rip, and you had to pick one to watch, what would it be?
Was the animated Batman Rip written by Grant Morrison on mushrooms? Because
it has to be.
Yeah, honestly, I probably would watch that just to see what kind of crazy shit he comes up with. Now, real quick, we're already getting interested in the show. My buddy Joe, who is going to be coming on the Pint podcast in the next couple of weeks. We did an episode of the Triple T Trash, Tolerable, or Treasure with Joe, where we talked about Superman 4: The Quest for Peace. So keep an eye on that early April. Joe wants to know, is there anywhere he could find the list of the 16 films you guys are doing?
Honestly, the quickest and easiest way is Wikipedia. Googling Flashpoint Paradox and going from there, it'll show you the full list of all 16 movies. So if you want to run through them as we're going through them, you can definitely do so. We always hint at the next movie in the canon anyway. But yeah, I'd say Wikipedia search is the best place. It's all listed beautifully and in sequence.
Is there a Canterbury Cricket movie?
Sadly, not this go around.
So Joe and anybody else is interested, go to www.forgottenentertainment.com and you can see some stuff about Andrew's new show, our new show, and all the shows they have on there that are great. They really do. Forgotten Cinema is a weekly listen for me. Those guys do some really great stuff. So, all right, let's get into, before we start talking Snyder Cut, I wanted to bring up real quick. So I just mentioned we do a series on the show, which is called Trash, Tolerable, or Treasure. The idea behind that series is we take a movie that has a reputation of being trash, right? For example, we did with Stu, we did Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, which is much hated by people. We did Waterworld, a movie that, people just consider trash. We did, I'm trying to think of something else. We did Batman Forever, movie people generally don't like.
You just did Judge Dredd.
We just did Judge Dredd, correct. So, in that mindset, I'm going to go around the horn here. We're going to do a mini episode of Trash, Tolerable, or Treasure. I want to know where you guys each sit on the 2017 cut of Justice League. I want that base coat so that we know what we're going to paint on top of to see a difference with the Snyder cut. So I'm going to start with Lou. Lou, if you had to give one of the three T's to the 2017 Justice League, the Whedon, I guess Justice League is what they're calling it. What would you say? Where would you put that?
Trash.
Trash.
Firmly
All right.
implanted in trash.
All right. Garbage can for Lou.
Yeah, oh yeah.
All right. Stu, what would you put it at?
I thought it was perfectly tolerable. I thought it was a completely forgettable movie. I watched it and then I forgot most of what happened in it until I watched the Snyder Cut and was like, oh, I've seen this movie before. Right. It's fine. I have it right in the middle of the DCEU at this point. Like, it's ahead of Birds of Prey. It's ahead of Man of Steel. It's ahead of Batman vs. Superman, but it's beneath like Shazam, Wonder Woman. Yeah, it's right in the middle there somewhere.
All right, we'll go to Andrew last because Andrew's almost like the resident DC guy right now. I'll go tolerable too. We saw it in the theater. We actually, on one of the early episodes of Pine of Comics, did a review on it. I wasn't offended by it. It's not an MCU, higher MCU level movie by any means, but you have to take it in account for what it is. It's a DCEU movie, which, they're shaky as it is. For a 2-hour movie, I wasn't offended by it. Perfectly tolerable. I think I have the Blu-ray. I've watched it once or twice since then. Perfectly tolerable and a decent length too. You got right in there. Andrew, where do you land? Do you give this a trash, tolerable, or treasure for the original?
I would say most of it is tolerable. It's a simple 4-quadrant Justice League 2-hour movie. It does go into trash anytime we see Henry Cavill's fake mouth. But for the most part, it's not offensive by itself. I will say in a vacuum by itself, it is a tolerable enough movie.
Okay. All right. Fair. So we don't have any. See, Chris Frodell loves us. You know why? Because me and Lou are wearing his hat, arguing with myself. Check him out on Facebook. And he's been on the podcast and he's a good friend. Joe says original was tolerable, but too short. Joe, do you mean too short in accordance to a 4-hour fucking movie? Because I'll tell you what, it was like 2 hours long. It was just about right. I think Joe's a friend of mine. He messaged me because he's been wanting to watch this. He messaged me today and said, I finally finished the Snyder Cut so I can watch your thing tonight. So like that's not normal for a movie, Joe. You shouldn't have to try. This took me now. I want to go around and ask everybody. We'll start with Andrew and go backwards. Andrew, did you watch this in one shot, or was this like, did you break this up?
Watched it in one shot, barring shot breaks and times where HBO Max just gave up.
Yeah.
We just went straight on through. Took about 4.5 hours.
Okay. All right. Lou, one shot. What'd you do?
Got about an hour and a half, 2 hours through it, then took a break to run and grab some Chinese and came back. So, I mean, I didn't stop for any period of time. So I guess you can count that as a one shot.
Did your HBO Max get wonky on you? Because Andrew mentioned it, and mine got wonky on me, especially the first night. On Thursday, when I got home from work, it froze several times.
No, I went right through. No problems.
All right. Stu?
I watched it first thing Saturday morning, and HBO Max did not give me any problems. I woke up 8:30. I came down to the basement. I turned it on. I made it till about 11, and then I just take a nap every day on the weekend. So this isn't the movie's fault in particular. Like by 11, by noon on a weekend, it's back to bed for me. So I took a nap, and then I woke up and finished it. It took me from about 8:30 to 3:30 to do the whole movie. It was essentially 2 viewings.
Okay. For me, it was 3. I'm a tired guy. I had a lot going on last week. So Thursday, I worked like a 14-hour shift at work, but I wanted to, it's Thursday. It's out. I didn't care about being spoiled because we've seen this movie before. There's really nothing that gets spoiled that it wasn't backstory stuff. And I'm a comic guy, so I figure I know it. So I watched. This is how you know how long this movie was. I got home from work at 9:00. I ate dinner. And I started the movie, I think, at like 9:30. I watched till 10:30 and fell asleep on my couch, not in it. It didn't eat me. It's not the bed from Nightmare on Elm Street. Fell asleep on my couch and out cold. I open my eyes. The credits are rolling. I look at my phone. It's 1:52 a.m. So that's a long fucking movie. So Friday night, I get home from work. I had to go see my wife, get home from work. I start playing it again, and within an hour, now I get back to the 1 hour mark. I get to the second hour mark and fall asleep again. So Saturday I got home from work, and Saturday I get home from work and I finish off the last 2 hours. So this was a three shot for me. Robert Barron's Inc., our great friends, go to www.robertbarronsinc.com to check out awesome t-shirt designs and all that good stuff. Wouldn't want to get spoiled on the Aquaman sea shanty. Now, Stu did a on Saturday morning, he did a live tweet of this, and some of it's really funny. And he mentioned something that I mentioned. The only thing I tweeted the whole time was, I think I tweeted early on, was, I don't know if this could get any better than Aquaman leaving the village from Midsummer and then them going a cappella on him. Like, she's huffing his sweater, and so
all the fish in the sea. Like, that is a fishy sweater.
Yeah. Aquaman has a real problem with shirts. Why does he wear them? Because he keeps on
wears
them.
He comes out of the water in the sweater, and then to get back in the water, we got to get rid of that sweater. Which, I'll be honest with, Jason Momoa, for me, Jason Momoa is when you're driving home with your mom and you're like, Mom, I want to stop and get The Rock. And your mom's like, no, we have The Rock at home. And then you go home and it's Jason Momoa.
I mean, to be fair, if I looked like Jason Momoa, I'd never wear a shirt
but that's where I'm going with it. If dude wants to look like that, don't wear a shirt ever in any of your movies, guy. That's fine.
All right. That's true. That's absolutely true. I wondered that. I wondered why, if he keeps coming out of the water in a shirt, yet he goes in the water and takes the shirt off. He did it twice in the movie, at least. Mm-hmm. Where does he get the shirt that he comes out of the water? Does he have a locker underwater? I mean, is it Davy Jones's fucking locker?
That big trash island that apparently exists in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. He just pulls clothes out of there.
Yeah, buff clothes. All right. So now to gauge a little bit more, I do want to know from you guys. Now, this is a thing that came about almost entirely from fandom, right? The fans of this movie, again, the backstory, if you're watching this and you don't know, this was a movie made in 2016. During filming, Joss Whedon, and this is not, and again, I want to put this out there, not making fun of this in any way, shape, and or form. During filming, Joss Whedon's daughter committed suicide. Zack Snyder. I'm sorry. Zack Snyder's daughter committed suicide. That's fucking terrible, right? He goes back to work for a couple months to take his mind off of it, and he just can't, he can't handle it. And nobody could blame this guy, right? Nobody could blame him. They make him wear a shirt in Atlantis, and then he definitely tears it off. Yeah, you have to, when to enter Atlantis, it says shirts, and he has to put it on. So unfortunately, that happened. The brass at WB, right, isn't crazy about Snyder because, even though he's making a lot of money, I think there's been a lot of fan backlash about Man of Steel, which I actually enjoy a lot of Man of Steel. Batman vs. Superman was a crap fest, I thought, personally. And then you get to Justice League, and he's making this movie. So they bring Joss Whedon in because at the time, Joss Whedon had just done 2 Avengers movies. They're both, massively successful. One of them's good, one of them's not. But he still made 2 really successful movies for Marvel. And obviously, anytime you can take from the competition who's doing it much better than you, you do that. They put this movie out that still is credited to Zack Snyder, but it is this weird amalgamation. It's got the weird lip with Henry Cavill. There's weird shit going on, right? So fans start backlash. We want to see the Snyder Cut. We want to see the Snyder Cut. There is no Snyder Cut for years. And then all of a sudden there's a Snyder Cut, right? And we're told it's going to be coming out HBO Max, right? So that's kind of where we're at. This was kind of a fandom back thing that took life. So there's a lot of people that wanted this. There's a lot of people that didn't care. And there's a lot of people that were kind of against it. So I want to gauge each of you. Andrew, were you excited about the prospect of a Snyder Cut, or did you just not care?
I did not care at all going into this. I mean, I have not really enjoyed a Zack Snyder film since maybe like 300. Enjoyed Watchmen a little bit. Man of Steel was okay, but it had been diminishing returns for me for years. So the idea of giving him more creative control at that time seemed like a terrible idea. And I was like, just leave Justice League as it is and let's move on and make other movies. But when it was coming out, I was honestly shocked that they had pulled this off.
Okay. All right. Lou, was this something that you needed in your life, or you just didn't care?
I mean, I wasn't part of the hashtag movement, but I think it was fair of them to let him finish it. You know what I mean? It's after what happened with his daughter and everything else, and kind of got, he didn't have much of a chance to do it. And I mean, while I could have lived with or without it, you know what I mean? It's just nice to at least have his vision realized the way he originally planned it, you know?
All right.
So,
Yeah, because originally too, this was supposed to be 2 movies,
yeah.
right? It was going to be Justice League and then Justice League 2, and the Snyder cut is kind of a amalgamation or a mashup of both. I don't know what you'd call it, but that's why this thing's 4 hours long. That's why this thing would never play. I want to give a shout out to my buddy Keith and his crew over at Geek Time, the Geek Time Network. Someone in that crew rented out a theater on Thursday night and streamed it, and they went and fucking sat for 4 hours. They went. Now part of that crew, or part of like the local Connecticut, kind of podcasting and comic book crew. Mitch Halleck, who runs Terrificon, went with them, and Jerry Ordway, who's been on our show and who we're friendly with, went with them as well. Jerry Ordway, very famous comic book writer artist who was part of the team that killed Superman. He went, and if you want to check them out, check it. They have a live review video, and they also made it into a podcast. And I'll tell you what, they went and saw it in the movies, and these guys all pretty much like fawned over it. I can't imagine fawning over anything sitting for 4 hours, but they actually fawned over it. So that's very interesting. Stu, were you sleepless at night wondering where the Snyder cut was?
Pretty much exactly the same on board with Andrew. I love his Dawn of the Dead remake. I love 300. I enjoyed Watchmen. And then I think this is where I differ than some people. I thought Man of Steel was the pits. And then Batman vs. Superman, I actually think is better than Man of Steel, but it's still the Martha movie. It's still the Jesse Eisenberg shoves a Jolly Rancher in your mouth movie. It is what it is. So I was done with Zack Snyder making DC movies. Like, especially once DC got into Wonder Woman, and then I didn't love Aquaman, but at least was dumb and fun. And then Shazam, which I know you don't like, but I thought was great. I thought, like, all right, we're getting past this guy's vision. These movies are getting better now. I did not want DC to regress. And, that's what's going to happen now.
Eric wants to know, was this the 300 sequel? 300 minutes, yeah. Joe says Man of Steel is so much better than BVS. Hey, we all got our opinions. I'm going to go with Man of Steel as well. It definitely has. Man of Steel has a lot of stuff I like about it. And then there's things like Pa Kent, just let people die.
Yeah.
and
the
then
movie lost me there and never got me back.
I also, I see Pa Kent's point in those scenes where it's like, you don't want to be ostracized. You don't want to be found out. But it's kind of a hard, and then especially don't save me. Let the tornado whip me across the fucking state of Kansas. I don't know. You know what I mean? It just seems, I don't know. How does this?
Yeah, but I mean, at that point, he kind of backed himself into a corner. It's not. Yeah. You have one thing saying let people die to protect. To not reveal who you are. It wouldn't make much sense when the tornado's about to sweep them away to be like, you know what? Use your superpower, save me.
Yeah, I know.
So
I know.
they did. There was consistency there at least.
Exactly, it's consistent to what we've seen with the character.
Yeah.
I will say this about Man of Steel. Henry Cavill makes a fine Superman to me. Mm-hmm. Out of the 3 movies he's been featured in, and any version of these movies, it's the most I like him as Superman. Because in B versus S, it just rang hollow to me. Like the end of Batman vs Superman dies. Now, I'm not a huge Superman fan, but I'm a comic fan, and I do like Superman. I also freely admit all the time that I cry at the stupidest shit in movies. It didn't even remotely get any nothing. I felt nothing for that character when he died.
Yeah.
And then you get to Justice League, and even more so this 400-minute cut, whatever it is, and he's given so little to do. This should be called the Snyder Cut. Parentheses, hope you don't really like Superman that much. Because I get it. He doesn't show up until hour 6, but then even from hour 6 on, he doesn't really get a lot to do. I agree, Joe. It's something we did not get in the early movies. I like Superman being able to fight a near equal with special effects. Yes, that was the biggest cry about the first 4 Superman movies is that, it's all about Lex Luthor land grabs all the time. And then finally, when you do, part 2, everybody loves because he does fight Kryptonians, and then Richard Pryor shows up in part 3, and then part 4, Nuclear Man shows up, and he's terrible. Oh wait, let's see this. My boss's boss is named Jor-El. It's hard to talk to her about being Superman. Is your boss's boss Nicolas Cage's kid? Because isn't that what he named his, or Kal-El?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
All right. So real quick to finish that off, I could care less if there was ever a Snyder cut, but there was no way that I wasn't going to at the very least watch it and check it out and be able to talk to you guys about it. All right. So before we start talking about specifics in the movie, I'm just going to come out and ask you guys right off the bat where you landed with this overall. How did you feel about it after the 4 hours? Good, bad, indifferent, whatever. Stu, I'll go back to you.
Mostly indifferent. I describe this movie as frustratingly adequate. Like, it's nowhere near as good as people want to say. I have people, like, they comment and they're like, I had no idea this would end up on my Mount Rushmore of comic book movies. And I'm like, well, you should probably see more than 5 then, shouldn't you? But it's not as memeable as, say, Batman vs. Superman. There's no Martha moments. There's no Pa Kent saying, just let a bus full of kids drown. Like, it's a fine movie. And for 4 hours, I want either something comically bad or legendarily good, and it wasn't. I rate the Justice League 2017 as a 5. I give this like a 5.5. I think it's negligibly different.
So the 2 extra hours equals a 0.5 in your book. That's
yeah.
That would be a failing grade if anybody was grading this. Yeah, I do agree with you on a lot of what you said. Lou, I think you might go a little different way. I'm actually surprised at how many people, like, on movie Twitter, film Twitter, and just social media, absolutely love this thing to the point that if you went on Twitter Friday or Saturday, I saw almost nothing about Falcon and Winter Soldier, which came out Friday.
Mm-hmm.
2 weeks ago, everybody on Earth is talking about WandaVision. Everybody, because it's a Marvel property. And now Falcon and Winter Soldier comes out, and somehow this 4-hour cut of this movie has eclipsed, like, it being talked about, which I found amazing. And I actually really liked the first episode of Falcon Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
I felt like for an hour episode, I got everything I wanted out of it. And for a 4-hour movie, I necessarily didn't. But people are, like, really on this Snyder cut. Lou, what did you feel?
I liked it. I mean, yeah, it was long, but in my estimation, it didn't drag. I liked everything they added character-wise. I mean, I can understand Superman fans not being too thrilled with it. I liked what they did with Cyborg. I liked how they fleshed him out. He to me, he was the biggest winner in the whole thing. Once again, Gal Gadot is the highlight of the DC cinematic universe, in my opinion. She's fantastic, and everything they added with her. I liked how, a lot of the stuff that was ripped out of the last movie was put into this one, and it would have been good as 2 movies, only because you would have gotten to see all this. And I understand that times being what they are and everything else, just release it as one thing. But yeah, I mean, I'd probably go with an 8. I mean, I don't think it's the greatest thing ever, but I mean, it's definitely, in my opinion, not bad.
Is that on a scale of 75 or 10?
That is on the Dave Meltzer Infinity scale.
Okay. All right.
Dave Meltzer 5-star scale.
I knew Stu was gonna get that.
All right. So before we get to Andrew, I'll go real quick.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why this was 4 hours long. I can't pinpoint it because I didn't feel like there was really enough extra. My biggest mistake was, and I didn't have time last week, was I should have watched Justice League to really see, like, what extra stuff they used to flesh out. Because yes, I do agree, it's noticeable that Cyborg gets more attention and more backstory. It's also noticeable that nobody paid attention to the CGI because it still sucked on Cyborg. It just did not work.
Cyborg looked terrible.
He did look terrible, and I don't know where I read it, if it was on Twitter or someone I know said it, but he doesn't look like machinery. He looks like broken glass. Like,
that was me.
It was you. Yeah. Okay, it was you. It was absolutely you. And
there's very specifically, when Eric Larson was writing Spider-Man, he wrote a story arc where Sandman gets turned into glass and Dr. Octopus shatters him, and then he puts himself back together and is walking around as, like, broken glass Sandman. And the entire movie, looking at Cyborg, that's all I could think of was broken glass Sandman.
Yeah. Yeah, I wasn't a big fan of it. Our buddies Robert Barron's definitely better than the 2017 version, with plenty of stuff that could have been cut. That's true of any 4-hour movie. He looks like Wakandan Kano. It looks like, what does it say? It looks like Cyborg is played by Don Lemon. Yeah, he kind of does look like Don Lemon.
He does look like Don Lemon.
There's actually a pretty humorous. It's not meant to be humorous, but I felt it was humorous. And it's kind of a cool scene where Cyborg is explaining the how the Nazis found the mother box, and he like transports. In story when he's telling the story, he's walking through the village. But like if you watch it, he's in his varsity jacket, he's got his hands in his pocket, and it almost looks like he's filming a music video because he's mouthing the words of what he's saying to them as he's walking through. And I thought this looks like a slow jam video or something. It just it's the scene just didn't like grasp me. I wanted to like Cyborg more in this. I liked the football scene. I thought that was cool. I liked I don't remember if the scene with him and his mother getting killed and him getting, really messed up was in the original version or not.
No,
but that was harsh. I mean, you knew it was coming, but that was harsh. But I guess my biggest problem with all this, and it was also something Stu said, but I fully agree with it, is I have no problem with Ray Fisher. I have no problem with, I know some people think he's a troublemaker and all that. He's kind of been vindicated because now everybody's saying that Joss Whedon's a fucking cretin, right?
Mm-hmm.
I have no problem with Ray Fisher. I know him from nothing else. My problem is, and this is a problem with a lot of the DCU stuff, is the same problem with Ezra Miller, is over on the little box, there's a better guy playing your character. And Doom Patrol, Javon Wade, is a better fucking cyborg.
Yeah.
He is so great.
I mean, it's an entirely different character. Like, Javon Wade's version is fun, and nothing in the Snyderverse is fun. We're not allowed to have that. I love Javon Wade on Doom Patrol.
Yeah, me too. All right, so that's where I stand. Andrew, where do you stand on this? How did you feel about it at the end of the day?
Yeah, I have to admit, while I was watching it, I was entertained consistently. So I did appreciate the movie for entertaining me. But stepping back out of it, I say 6 out of 10, just because there is some really good stuff in there. There is some good stuff. If you could have put that in a 2-hour movie, I think we have a good, like, solid 8 out of 10 movie. But I cannot explain to anybody who doesn't watch these movies why it took 4 hours, longer than a Lord of the Rings movie, to explain how a mother box and 3 of them make a killer. Like, I just I can't explain that. So I think the length is just too outrageous for anyone to really sit through. I think it really holds it back. If you cut out a couple of throat singing scenes and a lot of exposition of an arrow flying in the midair, things like that, we could get this down to a manageable length and it could get a higher score, but it's middle road for me.
So do you think, I guess this is a good question. So like you said,
hey, I'm just going to let everyone know my wife has just called me 3 times in a row. I'm hoping her car didn't break down. I'll be right back.
Okay. Yep. We'll take care of that.
Oh boy.
All right. So I guess that leaves a good question there, is that so like you said, kind of, there's a lot of extra good stuff in here. Okay. Is there a way to make this the same length as the original Justice League movie, but just take out some of the garbage from that one and insert some of the stuff from this one? Do you think that's possible?
I think it's very possible. I think what this movie was trying to do, which is really weird, is this movie was still trying to set up the Aquaman movie, the next Wonder Woman adventure, Flash. It was trying to do all these different things. Now that Aquaman's already out, so I think we take out pretty much every scene with him until he interacts with Steppenwolf and Batman. Same with Wonder Woman. I know she's a great character, but in this movie, she doesn't get a character arc. So the 30 minutes or so we spend with her grieving being the last Amazon doesn't really go anywhere by the end. So I say, nix that. And the Flash scenes, I love, the slow motion hot dog catch with Iris. But again, that's another thing that if this movie is truly about Cyborg and he's the heart, let's trim out as much as we can to get the focus on Cyborg, get an idea of who these other characters are, and keep it moving. So we have a 2 and 45-minute movie that can just be the tragedy of Cyborg and how he pulls everybody else in.
All right, that's fair. Lou, I got a question for you, because I heard a lot of people saying this, and I don't agree with it. one of the things I heard about, especially before I got to watch it on Thursday, and I heard it on a couple podcasts I listened to, is how much they kind of corrected the jokiness of the Flash character in Ezra Miller. I didn't see that at all. He was still making all the quips. It was still kind of like this goofy humor. Did you feel that he was lighter or not as goofy in this one?
I do, but only because there was so much more of him. You get what I'm like? In the original, what he did was all jokey. You know what I mean? Like there was very little room for him to be more Barry-ish in there. But with all the added scenes and all the added dialogue, it wasn't as concentrated. If that makes sense.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? So like it was more spread out. You know, so while the scenes that were jokey were still there, it wasn't as in your face as it was in the original cut.
All right, Stu, everything good?
She possibly ruptured her Achilles tendon.
Oh, geez.
no.
Yeah, she was doing an aerial silks class, and she did this before. She was just walking down the stairs in our house, and her Achilles tendon popped. It wasn't ruptured, but she was in a boot for a long time. And she said she was at this aerial silks class. She was just doing jumping jacks, warming up, and it popped in her Achilles again.
Oh,
I
man.
thought you were going to say she was at the combine for inside linebacker.
I feel like she said it was a right leg, and she was like, I'm going to drive home. I was like, can you, though? She said she's going to try, so I might have to leave. We'll see what happens.
All right, let us know. Amanda, be safe. Obviously you're watching this on your phone. Achilles tendon, you know, you're obviously watching this. This is priority. I want to just say thank you, Stu, for all the people that I'm getting messages from that got to watch you on the phone for about 6 minutes. That was they said it was the highlight.
Sorry.
No, I'm kidding. Eric says better Cyborg, Ray Fisher or Jean-Claude Van Damme. Yeah, 1991 Van Damme. Probably I'm going to go with no.
What about Dolph Lundgren?
Dolph Lundgren, yeah, that's a Unisol. That's Universal Soldier.
Soldier, yeah.
They weren't cyborgs. They were dead Vietnam vets
Okay.
who were brought back to life. They were frozen. It's a whole thing. They were given a super soldier serum, actually. Okay, so now that Stu's back on, I got a question. We're talking about the Flash a little bit. Why does the Flash run so stupidly? What is this?
I thought of that in the movie, too. I was like, boy, he would run faster if he had any form whatsoever, right?
No,
it's like he's running like those kids that run like Naruto with their arms out. I don't know. Ezra Miller, it's like you said, it's the same thing with Joyvan Wade in Doom Patrol. It's you have Grant Gustin right there, and you bring this guy in? Why?
Yeah. And I think even a bigger problem than they've done this in the DC movies a lot, but like even on the Flash TV show, why is this character Barry Allen and not Wally West? Like, Barry Allen, read a Barry Allen comic book. Read a comic.
He shouldn't even be Barry. He should be Bart.
Anybody but Barry. Barry is a very straight-laced, serious guy, and yeah, Bart is probably closer than even Wally. But like, none of these characters seem like Barry to me. Even Grant Gustin, you know, it just seems like very much like I always thought about. I know everybody hates it, but the Green Lantern movie. Why was he not Kyle? Why was he? Because he didn't seem like Hal. Hal's a very straight-laced, dude, I don't know.
Well, it's funny because I was saying the same thing. I was saying to my wife because she was saying like none of these characters, are like how they are, and I said, well, that's because the DC characters are all the same way. They're all very straight laced. If you have Aquaman and Barry and like say Hal and all in a movie together, it's just like four guys staring at each other.
Yeah,
because like, they have no personality. Yeah. So they had to give him a personality to at least have something to do. I mean, even Superman's milquetoast as anything.
Oh yeah, it would be like four white guys, Cyborg and Wonder Woman. That's what they should rename this team if they use that, because they're just all straight laced. And I get it, they give them personality, and I'm okay with that to an extent. But sometimes I just wonder if you have this character, people aren't hinging on it being Barry Allen. You could just make it Bart, or you could make, and that could be part of the story when you eventually get to this Flash movie that'll be out in 7 years. He's from the future or something. We find out, So yeah, Ezra Miller. Some of his humor, I don't really mind Ezra Miller. I don't know him from much of anything, right? I don't know him. I know he was in at least one of those Harry Potter Fantastic Beasts things.
Two of them. He's a Dumbledore. Spoilers. Sorry.
Oh. Damn it, Andrew! We're sorry.
The pint is great for spoiling movies we didn't watch that week.
Great.
Yeah, no, that's all spoiler podcast here. Yeah. So Ezra Miller. Now here's something I want to gauge all of you guys on, because I know how everybody loves him. It seems like everybody loves him, and I just don't feel it. And I like the actor, I just don't feel it. Ben Affleck, Batman. Where do you guys sit on him? Andrew, are you a fan of Ben Affleck as Batman?
I mean, I feel like I've never seen him in a good enough script to really tell. I mean, Batman v Superman, he's just this angry Dark Knight Returns version of himself. And here he's almost like he took a bunch of Ambien and is just chilling, because he's none of that rage or anger is really there in this movie. He's just so calm and relaxed and almost a completely different character. I would love to see like him isolated, because I just feel like they change him to suit the whims of whatever movie he's in. Like in the Justice League movie, he was this jokey, like Iron Man type, and we're like, this is not Batman.
Yeah.
But I feel like he's never really gotten a chance to be him. I think he could be he can definitely be a decent Bruce Wayne across the board, but I feel like we've never gotten a chance to see him as Batman.
Yeah, I feel like the best scene we've seen him in any movie was the first scene in Batman vs Superman, where he's running into the rubble. I thought, oh yes, he's gonna be great. And it's weird because you also got, I hate that movie, but you also got a really good scene at the end, the Martha retrieval scene, where he beats all those dudes. It's like you got to see Batman really kicking ass. This might sound really weird, but like, I don't really like his suit, and I almost feel like he's too built in that suit. Like, I kind of like, if I think of Batman, I kind of think of Michael Keaton or even Christian Bale. Really, probably guys that are in good shape that look good in the suit, but it doesn't look too bulky. In this cut, I just noticed he looks like fucking Wolverine half the time you see him. He's like little, and he's got like all squared off, and I'm like, I don't know if I really get along with that Batman. Lou, how do you feel about Ben Affleck as Batman?
I'm gonna echo what was already said. There hasn't been enough. You know what I mean? We haven't really seen him in anything to really gauge it.
Yeah.
And I mean, he could be great, but don't know. You know what I mean? I mean, for like you said, the two scenes in Batman Superman, the first scene and the scene where he goes to rescue Martha. Yeah, I mean, those were great, but you know what I mean? Outside of that, I really don't have an opinion on him one way or the other. I just wish he would have a script and be given a chance.
Totally agree on the suit. He looks puffy in the suit. Thank you, Robert Behrens. I appreciate it. I want to call Chris out.
He doesn't like raisins. What does he know?
Yeah, I know. Seriously, seriously.
Jeez.
Yeah, I will say that. Actually, as someone who read the Barry Allen Flash in the '70s, I find the movie Flash very annoying. Who's this here? Comic Chams. Am I saying Chams or is it Cams? Unfortunately, there is more muscle padding in that suit than most parties. Yeah. I totally agree. I think it's a combo. I think Affleck did get in good shape. Remember that scene in Batman Superman where he's pulling a tire across? Yeah, he looked pretty good for like a guy like almost 50 years old. But yeah, I agree. I think that thing is like they put it on. It's like a kid suit where they pump air into it. It's like it gets like this. Stu, are you a fan of Batfleck?
I'll actually get into the look first. I don't have a problem with it because this is supposed to be an older Batman. This is a Batman, several years into his career at this point. So I'm here for the fact that maybe because of age, because of injuries, he has sacrificed speed and agility for strength. So I don't mind the fact that he's bigger because as you get older, you get slower, but you can still pretty well bulk up. So I'm okay with that. I get that. And I will go a little off the board here and say I am 100% here for Batfleck. I am a big fan of his. I like his work as Batman. I agree that I don't think he's had the best stuff to work with, but I think given a movie, I would much rather see him as Batman than Edward Cullen, which is what we're going to get.
Yeah.
But Yeah, I'm a fan. I think he could do really good things. And I agree with you. I remember being in the theater for Batman vs. Superman. And after the first 15 minutes of that movie, I was jacked. I was like, I'm here for this movie. This is going to be the greatest thing ever. And then there were years of pee. It wasn't. So what are you going to do? Boy, that opening scene with him as Bruce Wayne Metropolis is fantastic.
Yeah, it was, and then the rest of it happened. Eric wants to know, Stu, are you a fan of in-shape Ben Affleck flipping a tire?
I mean, not as much of a fan as I am of Jason Momoa just taking his shirt off for the hell of it, but
Yeah. There's a lot of beef.
Shirtless hot dudes just want to flip things around. I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I will say there is a lot of beef castle on this Justice League because you got Momoa, right? I mean, that guy's just like, he's just jacked as shit. And you got Affleck, who for like a 50-year-old guy looks pretty damn good. And then Henry Cavill. We haven't even talked about Henry Cavill. That guy's a fucking a stone god, right? And then, Ezra Miller and Ray Fisher only loses out because like this version of Cyborg is just a face. Like, did you ever see the RoboCop remake from like 5 or 6 years ago?
No.
Oh yeah.
It's terrible. It's terrible. Yeah. But there's a great scene in it where they pull out all of the original body parts of Murphy to show you how they're going to make RoboCop, and all it is his face and his throat. And you're like, well, that's mostly robot. Why are you even bothering? That seems to be what they did with Cyborg. He's just like in the comics in the 80s, if I remember correctly, he had both of his arms to a certain point.
Yep.
I think his forearms up were robotic. I think one of his legs was still real, or part of it was real. This dude is literally a fucking like a iMac with a fucking head on it, a half of a head. It seems like there's so little person in there. All right, so let's talk a little bit about moments in this movie. Were there any moments in this movie?
There were a lot of moments. In this movie.
Oh, there's a ton. There's a ton. Yeah, I keep hearing this. For everyone complaining about Pattinson, watch The Lighthouse. I hear that movie's fucking crazy. I hear there's a lot of masturbation in it. So I'm
That's what I've heard. Yeah.
I can certify there is a lot.
You've seen it. Okay.
I've seen it. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm gonna check it out. I heard there's a lot of seagulls in it. I heard it's weird, but I do want to check it out. It's from the director of The Witch, which I liked a lot. So, Were there any moments in this movie? All right, so I'm going to use this as an example, and I'm kind of known as the guy who wasn't a huge fan of Endgame, but I could freely admit, even seeing it in the theaters, the scene where Captain America catches Mjolnir is incredible. It's my dick got hard. I'm not gonna lie, right? My nip, everything on my body that should get hard in a moment like that got hard. All right, there was probably some leakage. I'll be honest. I'm not gonna lie. So it did its job. There's a lot, and there's a ton of scenes in the Marvel films that like every movie has one that hits you. Like I remember. I probably saw. I don't remember if I saw it with Lou or not, but I remember going to see Iron Man 2, which is not a good movie. But the scene where he puts on the suitcase fucking armor, dick hard, right? So were there any, let's just say, were there any, he got a Mjolnir. Were there any scenes in this movie that did that to you? I'll give you one for me, and it might sound weird. One that did not work for me was Superman's reintroduction with the axe hitting him. It just did not work.
Oh, really?
It did, totally not. I thought
that's 100% my answer to your question is I'm marked out. Even 3 hours in, as tired as everything I was in this movie, when he came down and just no-sold that axe shot, I was like, yes!
Okay, all right, it didn't work for me. But one moment that worked for me, which might seem weird, was the scene on Themyscira when Steppenwolf is trying to take the mother box. And the one moment where, I can't remember which one it was, he says something about fear, and she says, "Your sisters, show them our fear," and they all go in unison, "We have no fear." I was like, that was fucking dope. Not to mention, like those women are so fucking hot, like so hot. Connie Britton has got, or was her name? No, Connie. What's her name? Nielsen. Connie Nielsen, who plays Hippolyta, has got to be like fucking 50 years old, and she is a goddamn smoke show. But there was just not enough of those moments in this for me. Lou, was there anything, the axe scene, was there anything that like you got up out of the chair and started dancing around? Anything?
Oh, we talked about it, the Flash scene where he was moving the rubble and he was just zipping in and out. That was cool. I really, really, really liked that. And I knew take it or leave it, but I really like the scene where he hit like light speed and he was going back. You know, he was turning time back at the end. I think they did a lot of good stuff with him in terms of that. I mean, granted, a lot of it was slow motion, but they did have some cool scenes with him. And the cyborg scene where he was talking about the mother box and he was going back through time, you know, that, and he was showing like the whole thing and everything else. I thought that was really cool.
The one other part that I actually liked a lot in the original version, and it's probably just the part of me that buys toys, because it's just a toy that I would like to buy, is when Batman says to Alfred, you know, get the Nightcrawler ready, and the Nightcrawler comes out, and whatever the fuck that thing is, I'm just like, I need to buy that fucking thing right now. That's such a useless goddamn vehicle for him. It's like, you know, when Batman comes out with like the cartoon comes out and they have 26 figures that have nothing to do with the cartoon, like X-Ray Batman and like magma suit Batman. The Nightcrawler is right there with something he would never need to use. But I love that thing. I don't know why, but I was psyched that they brought it back again. I wasn't sure if that scene was going to get cut out or not. What do we got here? Agree with Stu and Superman and the Axe. The anti-life equation has been found. Yeah, that just did not work for me. Andrew, anything that made you jump out?
I would say it's so rare to see any of these DC heroes smile. So the scene that really did it for me was Cyborg taking flight for the very first time, seeming to enjoy his powers, to be having a good time, to realizing that he could collapse the world economy in 2 seconds if he really wanted to. I just loved seeing him fly into the air, and that gave me like, oh, this is what a Cyborg movie could be like. And then, you know, we had 2.5 more hours of movie, but that was a bright spot that made me go like, huh, is there going to be any more of this? Oh no. Okay.
No, that's all.
Get back there.
No, we gave you this, and now leave us alone. Check that off. Steppenwolf, right? So we get Darkseid. Were you guys disappointed that we didn't actually get Darkseid as an actual villain in the film? He's always just like through a boom tube. He never, you know, you get flashbacks with him. You do get to see the fucking Omega beams, which was cool underwater when he blows away the Amazon, the Atlanteans. But like, were you guys disappointed? Because I didn't know how this was going to go. I thought that Darkseid was going to be the big bad they fought at the end. Did you guys feel the same way, Lou? Did you feel that way?
No, I thought that they would have built to it. You know what I mean? Like when you read the plans that they had, you know, for, you know, 2 and 3, you know, 3 probably would have been when he really showed up. Whether or not we get that anymore, I don't know. Personally, I've always said that the problem with a lot of these superhero movies is too many villain syndrome. Like they try and shoehorn 2, 3, 4 villains in every single movie. So having like a focus on one villain with Darkseid just kind of being like a looming presence, knowing that eventually you're going to get him, you know, I was fine with. But that's, you know, that's just me, I guess.
Andrew, were you thinking the final battle would be a Darkseid battle or no?
I was thinking they might have done it because they made so many changes. They swapped out Darkseid in the middle of the movie when Wonder Woman does that long flashback. Originally, in the first cut, Steppenwolf was in that big battle, but they put Darkseid in there. So I thought maybe they go all the way and, you know, put Darkseid in for Steppenwolf for the final battle. But he wasn't. And I wasn't really that disappointed. At that point, I was just like, end. But I did like that Steppenwolf got a little bit more motivation. I was invested enough in him. I just wish they would have actually said what was going on with Steppenwolf. It feels like that scene was cut, but
yeah, everything that's in this movie, they allude to Steppenwolf like losing Darkseid's trust, but then don't give us anything on it.
Yeah.
What happened? Let's tell us.
Yeah, well, that Stu, what did you say before we got on about the gray cut? What is this?
There is allegedly another cut of this movie coming out, the Snyder Cut Gray, which to my understanding is completely in black and white. And there's even more added scenes because there was a commercial that came out for this before it was released where the Joker says, "We live in a society," which is a big meme. And people were so excited about it. But that scene is not in the Sherry Moon zombie joke in the comments.
He got to it before I could. God damn you, Eric.
But the that scene's not in the movie. Well, in Justice League Gray or Snyder Cut Gray or whatever, that's going to be apparently in the movie is that line and more Joker stuff.
All right, so since you brought it up, and we're not done, but we're jumping around here, let's talk about that epilogue. All right. So I guess from what I've heard, and
Yeah.
if I'm wrong,
Andrew is right.
So from what I've heard, is that I guess after the battle with Steppenwolf, eventually they were going to travel to Apocalypse in the scripts. They were going to travel to Apocalypse, try to take on Darkseid there, get defeated. Superman gets, brought over to the dark side. Lois gets killed, and that's how this whole thing starts when Darkseid comes back to Earth. And what we're seeing is this ragtag new Justice League, which includes Mira instead of Arthur. She makes a comment that Arthur's dead. You get Flash in a mech suit with a goatee. So he's grown up a little bit, and now he's also a fucking robot, apparently. Who else was there? You get Deathstroke. Joe Manganiello, Deathstroke. And then you get Jared Leto's Joker from the Suicide Squad, which nobody has asked for since or before that movie. But now he doesn't have tattoos anymore. I want to talk about their dialogue, because here's something that I read multiple times online that kind of irritated me from more than one person. That this is the best dialogue between Batman and the Joker in a movie ever.
No.
All right, I read that a couple times.
Recency bias is real.
Yeah, that's real bad.
Yeah.
And immediately, I'm not saying it's...
And I hadn't heard the movie thing. I heard it was the best dialogue ever. Like, period. And I'm like, yeah, no. Okay, let's not even.
No.
Discounting years
Read a
of
comic.
awesome Bruce Timm cartoons and, fucking 80 years of comics. Even if you were to go to movies, and I don't mean to harp on this because everybody harps on this, the interrogation scene in Dark Knight is 1,000 times better.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
You don't start with the head.
I mean, to be fair, I don't recall an excellent moment in that interrogation scene where Heath Ledger implies that he's going to give Batman a handsy. What the fuck?
That's the best dialogue right there.
You can't tell me that was, as much as this movie had a Martha moment, that's it. That's the Joker joking about giving Batman a reach around I groaned at that and was like, what are you doing?
What's worse was his reaction, because Batman didn't disagree.
Yeah.
I was like, I was sat there thinking like, wait, does this happen regularly?
Those cold, lonely dystopian nights.
Yeah, I had a Deathstroke when Cap caught Mjolnir. Yeah, that's what I call my boner is Deathstroke.
I was gonna say even Keaton, with the whole "you want to get nuts"?
Yeah,
smashing the vase. Come on, you know what I mean? That was better.
Almost anything in 30 plus years of fucking celluloid history of Batman plus is better than this. But I don't know if I even thought the reach around line was as offensive to me as the and you better believe that I'm going to fucking kill you. Like, are we going there now? Is Batman an edgelord? Is that happening? Like, does the apocalyptic future make Batman like finally get there? And like all the illusions, like when I held Harley Quinn in my arms when she died, she begged me to kill you slow. It's like, are you really? I get it. You're trying to make us super interested in this world, what's happening. I don't care. I really don't fucking care.
No.
Even when Superman lands, like he found us. I'm like, yeah, who cares? Bad Superman. It just could not reel me in. It could not reel me in. And the whole dialogue.
Can we talk 1 second about?
Yeah.
There's this whole thing. There's this Batman keeps having dreams about this terrible future that's going to happen. Batman is not clairvoyant.
Yeah, I know.
Where did this superpower of Batman's come from?
Yeah.
Like, the only way the Snyderverse pays off for me is if we eventually go further down the line and find out that nothing like this ever happens. Batman just eats bad tacos before bed.
Well, doesn't this tie all back in? Doesn't this tie all back into when Barry came to him from the future?
Yeah, but he was still having a dream.
He showed up and he's having these dreams. And
yeah, but that's still
like,
he still can't dream of the future.
It felt like a cheat to me, because you got 2 scenes in this movie already where you had the cyborg vision of this nightmarish future, and you had the world blowing up before Flash goes back in time. So I felt like 2 times you got to see this dystopian world, and it was great in that moment, in the context of that moment. Here it's just tacked on to just make me sit there longer. I didn't want it, and I didn't want to mirror his British accent. I didn't want the mohawk. I didn't want any of it.
Yeah, Deathstroke's mohawk. Yeah,
Mohawk.
That's actually something I have to ask. I've never seen Aquaman. Does she not have a British accent in Aquaman?
No, she doesn't.
That's what I've heard. I'm like, it's almost like that one scene in Star Wars where Leia has a British accent for one scene. It's almost like that. When she's talking to Tarkin, she's like, I'm very disappointed. It's like, where did it go for the rest of the movie? And then I read that Mira doesn't have an accent in Aquaman. I'm not. I can't be bothered to watch Aquaman, so I don't know. But
I can tell you're not a wrestling fan. Accents come and go all the time.
Yeah.
Apollo Crews just found one.
Lana lost hers.
That whole ending there. I don't know, man. A lot of this, and I get it. They did this. They gave this to Zack Snyder. It ends very sweetly with for Autumn, his daughter. I get it. He went back to this thing that was a painful time in his life. So I'm not making fun of any of that. The nightmare scene was fumbled at the 1 yard line. Yeah, absolutely true. Absolutely true. It just didn't work. I think the best thing about the nightmare scene is it created maybe a couple of cool action figures. I think I saw a couple of Batman figures where he's wearing that the goggle thing, and it's a cool look. But it seemed like fan service. It was for fans of stuff that sucks. Yeah. So is
there are people going into this movie. There were people that were predisposed. No matter what this movie was, they weren't going to like it. There were people who, no matter what this movie was, they were going to love it. And I see people talking about how much they love this epilogue. And I just want to be like, do you though? Or do you just want to?
Yeah, I wonder the same thing. I went into this with no want of it, like you guys said. But I went into it going, hey, I hope I like this. Like, I don't want to dislike this because of what it is. That's not fair. And I admitted, like I said, I own the Blu-ray of the original one. So I mean, I've watched this movie. I will watch this movie here and there, But I just don't see at the end of the day what the extra 2 hours tacked on that gave me any more of a grasp of any of these characters. Cyborg withstanding, there was some good Cyborg stuff in there. But so did you seriously introduce Iris West and never get back to her? And so that whole scene.
In a kind of creepy scene too.
Yeah.
Totally creepy. Yeah. Totally fucking creepy.
Stroking her face in slow motion.
If I did that to a woman tomorrow.
Hashtag not all flashes.
So
Grant Gustin would never do this.
No, and honestly, let's be totally honest. Let's assume that because he's moving in super speed and she's not.
I'm getting another call. Hold on.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
Let's assume that she's moving.
She didn't rupture the left Achilles.
He's moving in super speed and she's not. So, and she's essentially standing still while this is all happening. So let's equate that to being asleep. If I did that to a woman who was sleeping, I would go to jail. He, folds her arms in front of her. You think he's doing all this stuff to keep her safe from the impact. Then he starts stroking her hair and face. I don't know, man. I wasn't feeling that at all. It just felt like another bad Flash scene. And then it gets even worse because it becomes a joke about the hot dog and him, getting the job. And I always keep a meat snack with me. I don't know. It just did not work. It did not work for me at all. I do want to talk about this. The epilogue does not fit the movie. What do you guys think about? We'll talk a little bit about costumes and stuff with Batman. Do either of you like the fucking Flash costume? Andrew, do you like that thing?
Not really. It doesn't. It goes right against what we know about Flash, because this version of the Flash is broke. We know he has struggles to get a job. We know he's rigged up this impromptu base. I don't see a valid explanation for how he got the pieces of the suit, except if he ran in and stole them. So it doesn't really fit the aesthetic. It was made to look cool, but it feels like he should have a friction rubber suit like he traditionally has. This seems too protective, too much, too early for him.
Can you picture this suit coming out of a ring? I can't.
No, it would collapse. It would shred the ring every time.
So Lou, I haven't seen the Flash TV show since probably season 3, but going back to say season 3 or wherever you might be.
About me too.
Okay, do you prefer the TV show version over the movie version in terms of the suit? Because I certainly do.
Yeah, I prefer the TV version over the movie version. The movie version's just the tactical looking armor that every comic book movie does nowadays. And it doesn't fit the whole, like, I agree, it doesn't fit the whole, he doesn't have money, he doesn't have a job, how did he get this? But like I said, I mean, Captain America had pirate boots, in the comics,
Yeah.
but now he wears like body armor, and they all do it. So to me, it's like it's just fitting in with how everything else goes.
I kind of assumed
but appearance wise, I prefer Grant Gustin's. Yeah,
yeah,
I will. Yeah,
I kind of assumed that maybe he did steal the materials for it because and they don't get into it, but I assumed that video of them watching him in the store, he was stealing food or something. Right when he's in that,
they
like
do
that,
allude to
that,
him.
like,
They do allude to him stealing. You know what
right.
I mean?
So I assume he's probably ripping this off from, like, an aerospace place or something along those lines. Superman suit. We don't get the blue suit. We get this black suit, which is obviously kind of torn from the 1993 Return of Superman. He did not have a mullet in this, though. No mullet.
I was actually said that too when we were watching. I'm like, thank God, no mullet.
Would that not have been great if they brought him back and he had a full on
mullet,
like
extra
Billy
hair.
Ray Cyrus? Yeah, business up top, party in the back. So I guess one of the questions on that is how did you guys feel about the last scene in the movie when you're getting all of the heroes kind of going off on their own journeys? Why is Superman still wearing the black suit? Right? When he's running down the alley and he takes how great of a scene would that have been if he's taking off the shirt, opens it up, and you got the more traditional, even Man of Steel, blue and yellow and red. He's still wearing the black suit. Like, is he Spider-Man 1985 now? What is happening?
It's so weird to me because, like we said a 1,000 times, this movie has so much extra stuff. It has so much extra, but we couldn't get like maybe a sentence about why he chose the black suit. Like, I think they could have set it up with the blue one was still damaged from getting speared in the chest by Doomsday.
Right.
But then they put another blue suit in the cave, right there. And he's just like,
he was in the ship. Yep.
Yeah. So it's like he wears a black suit for seemingly no reason. It was just as arbitrary as anything else. It looks cool, I'll admit, but there's absolutely no reason he's wearing it.
Yeah, I agree. It's a cool looking suit. It's the same suit in a black color, and in all honesty, almost black is always a great alternate. It'll always work. You know what I mean? Spider-Man proved it, and it would probably work for everybody in some way, shape, or form. Daredevil did it a few years ago. It looked great, but yeah, like at the end of the movie when you get this heroic bit, and he goes to, why did you not use the iconic shit? I also do think, and I don't remember the guy's name, but they took the Danny Elfman score out and put the score of this other gentleman back in.
Junkie XL, I believe.
Is it Junkie XL? In the original Justice League, if I'm correct, don't they use the John Williams Superman score a few times? They did not do it in this one, right? Or did I miss it?
Yeah, they took that out along with there was a Batman motif too when he first showed up in the 2017 version. But yeah, this was all new music. They kind of wanted to take out the Danny Elfman influence completely in favor of having a more uniform soundtrack. Yeah.
I got to be honest. I think Superman is one of those characters that no matter what you're doing, much like James Bond, in 20 years, yeah, when we're 3 James Bonds down from Daniel Craig, they should still be using the da-na, da-na. And Superman, no matter who's putting it out, who owns it, somehow you got to tack that John Williams theme on. I think. I just think it adds so much gravitas to the character and to what's going on. Stu, everything good?
Yeah, I just walked her into the house and got her some pain pills, and she's sitting on her chair.
She's chewing pain pills.
She did make it home, though. She said she was able to drive with a very specific tactic. So, God bless her.
All gas, no brakes?
I guess. I don't know how she managed, but she's here now. She's resting.
Eric, I missed this comment. I got to ask you, who was shit out of a giant robot? who is the she that was shit out of a giant robot? Stu, you missed us talking about, do you like the Flash's costume in this thing?
No.
Yeah.
Not at all. Why does his head come to a point in the back? He looks like the Impossible Man from Marvel Comics. I didn't like his costume at all. Again, you have a great Flash costume on your television show. Just use that. It's so much better looking.
Oh, I get it now. Okay, so Eric is asking. I get it. It was not he, not she. Was Superman? Yeah, because when Superman was reborn in the comics, he was plopped out of that rebirthing machine.
Yeah.
If you remember, he came out like all like naked, with all covered in goo, with a mullet. Yeah. Okay. All right.
Also, when Superman came back in the comics, he was wearing a black and white costume because that helped him absorb solar energy. It was a special Kryptonian solar suit. In this movie, he wore black and white because Zack Snyder did the movie.
Yeah. Yeah. If they gave Zack Snyder an extra half hour to this movie, Superman would have been split into a red and blue being of pure energy.
Except they would have just been black and gray.
Yeah, it would have
been red and blue.
Yeah, Superman black, Superman gray. Positive, negative charge, you know. Another character that I think the actor's great. Where's Junkie? Where's Justice League member Junkie XL? Junkie XL is actually the leader of Justice League Detroit, if you didn't know that, with Vibe. Another character in this film that I love the actor. I think he's great. He's been in a million things I like. He's a well-known actor. Just does not work for me. Is Jeremy Irons as Alfred? Am I wrong? Am I the only one that doesn't like him as Alfred? Lou, are you a fan?
I love Jeremy Irons. Maybe not as Alfred, but I love Jeremy Irons.
I already said that. I love Jeremy Irons. He's fucking high. He's
honest to God, I literally have no opinion of him as Alfred. He wasn't bad. He wasn't great. He was there. He existed.
He just seems so snarky.
I know it's just, you know what I mean? I guess that's probably the worst, it's probably the worst thing to say about him is he didn't, elicit any reaction from me, positive or negative. So he just sort of existed in the movie.
Andrew, you feel the same way? Are you a fan of him or?
I feel the same way. He just existed. I mean, he could read the phone book and we'd have a good time, but like underused, I guess. But I don't know. You don't want him to outshine anybody, so you just put him in the back. But besides that, like tea making scene, he doesn't get anything to do in this movie. No,
very little. Stu, important question going back to our Friday the 13th shows. Eric wants to know the epilogue to this movie or corned beef. What do you prefer?
I enjoyed the corned beef. The corned beef was definitely better than the epilogue to this movie. 100%.
Solid. Andrew, I haven't asked. Where are you out of in the country? Are you Connecticut or?
Oh, I'm in Brooklyn.
Brooklyn. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
All right. And another question I wanted to ask at the beginning, and I'll just throw it out now. Besides the DC podcast, are you guys on another podcast as well?
Not that I know of.
Okay. All right. Well, I know the guys doing the Star Wars show have another show. I wasn't sure if you guys had another show too.
Oh, no.
Right, and I wanted to make sure to get that out there. All right.
No, thank you. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. So I'll just go around the horn. Is there anything in this thing that struck you in particular, Stu, that you want to bring up? Is there anything off the top of your head, a moment, a choice, a character thing that I'm not pulling up that you want to talk about?
I feel bad because I did miss various chunks of this. I don't know if you've mentioned it, but there are parts of this movie, and I mentioned this before you came back from your microphone problems before we started recording, where you can legitimately wonder if this is supposed to be a parody of a Zack Snyder movie, because the slow-mo in this is ludicrous. It's all over the place. It's in scenes where it doesn't need to be. It feels like somebody's making fun of Zack Snyder as a director more than, Zack Snyder's just actually doing this. Like there's a scene where Aquaman is walking down a dock with a bottle of whiskey and it's in slow-mo and has backing music, and it's like, what is this choice? Why does this scene need this? You guys mentioned the football scene, and I mean, I guess it was a good enough scene, but it was again like, why is this in slow motion? Why does this need to be like this?
Yeah, someone else had put I don't know if it was on here or if I read it elsewhere. It's like the whole thing where Flash runs in slow-mo and that's supposed to accentuate how fast he's going is taken away by the fact that everything else is in fucking slow mo.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like-
when Lois Lane made coffee at the very beginning of the movie, was she doing it at light speed because it's slow mo?
Dude, so when the movie starts, right, and I know that Snyder likes his slow mo, and I know he likes Hallelujah, and I know he likes musical cues.
Yeah.
When Lois Lane goes to visit the memorial for Superman, and she drops off the coffee cup to actually, I can't remember his name. That's the actor who played Jimmy Olsen in the Richard Donner Superman movies.
Oh.
Yeah, the cop. That was a cameo. Mark, I can't remember his last name, but he also played Marty McFly's older brother in Back to the Future. So she gives him the coffee. She walks over to the memorial, and it starts to slow motion. She's walking, and she's sad and everything. And there's a shot of like a sawhorse kind of like a barrier, and it's just a shot of the sawhorse and her putting her coffee cup on it in slow motion. Like she's literally putting a coffee cup down, and this fucking guy is like, slow this down 8th speed. Like, what are you? Now I agree with you, but it's not a parody. That's how much he does it. So like, if you ever go back and watch the 2009 Star Trek by J.J. Abrams and remember how much everybody talked about lens flares,
Yeah.
watch Into Darkness, because he's literally at that point trying to blind you in every scene.
Well, I think what it is like it's the same thing with Christopher Nolan in the audio mixing.
Oh god.
At some point
Yeah.
it's just like at some point the directors read everything and they're like, yeah, you want slow-mo? You don't like my lens flares?
Yeah, that must be it. They
Here
must
we
just
go.
embrace everything.
Just you don't like that, you're gonna hate this.
Andrew, are you a fan? Are you a proponent of the slow mo? Would you like 30% less slow mo?
It wasn't slow enough.
I want this movie to come to a grinding halt.
I think IGN actually put up a thing that I saw where they timed it. It was like 24 total minutes in the movie
Jesus.
of slow mo. Like they
I'm actually
every
surprised
scene
it's that little.
yeah. And it was like 24 minutes and something seconds.
Snyder
I
wanted
just-
to add another jail member named Slow Mo.
It just feels like he knows what he's doing at this point. And I watched 300. I loved 300. It looked great there, but it's the whole cliche about the one trick pony. Like, man, we've figured it out, guy. We know what your trick is. Learn another.
Comic cams, was it cams again? Or
Yeah, he's saying
Yeah.
what I read. Yeah, 10% of the movie was
10%
like 24
of the
minutes.
movie was slow mo, according to IGN. Snyder slow mo versus Michael Bay slow mo. Not even close. Snyder. Michael Bay is Bayhem, and Snyder is slow mo. Eric says 300 was actually called 260 until they added the slow motion patch. Yeah, absolutely true.
Well, Joe brings up a good point. I want to segue off just real fast, either or. If for the rest of your life you could only watch movies made by one director, Snyder or Bay, who would you pick?
I'll go on that one. Thinking of their entire catalog.
Remember, he did Transformers.
Well, right. Lou and I.
Well, remember, Zack Snyder did this that we're talking
Right.
about.
a quick segue that'll answer that question. So I saw the first Transformers. I actually really liked the first Transformers. Second one I did not like. Eric says Bay. I can get laid watching a Bay movie. So Lou and I go to see Transformers 3, Dark Side of the Moon. Go to the theater. Go to see it. Right. And we're sitting our usual guy code 1 seat away from each other, give a little buffer, watching the movie. As I'm watching this movie, I'm going 25 minutes. And I'm going, what the fuck is going on in this movie? Right. The first 20 minutes is about Shia LaBeouf's character getting a job. Ken Jeong is in it, like comic relief. Alan, Tudyk is playing like this really weird character, and I don't know assassin character. And I'm like, are we in Transformers? So in my head, I'm thinking to myself, this is a candidate for a movie where I would lean over to someone and go, do you want to just fucking leave? But I'm like, Lou, no, we paid for it. Lou's not going to want to do that. So I don't know, like 10 minutes later, Lou leans over to me and goes, do you know what the fuck's going on in this movie? I lean back over and I go, I was going to ask you if you wanted to fucking leave. That was the last Transformers movie I watched. That pushed me off of that franchise. There's been, 3 or 4 since? Done.
Yeah,
Oh, no,
yeah.
I take it back. I enjoyed Bumblebee, but that wasn't Bay.
Yeah, I was gonna say I didn't think that was Bay. Yeah,
and they kind of did their own thing. But okay, so I'm gonna answer the question now. I would go with Bay, and here's the reason why. For Snyder, I love Dawn of the Dead, great remake. I am not really a fan of 300, never have been. Sucker Punch, there's a lot of good stuff to look at in there. And then you've got all of his DC movies, and Watchmen. Okay, it's got its merits. It's not great, but Bay does have some legitimately good movies. The Rock, right? He made The Rock, so right off the bat, just The Rock alone.
Just The Rock, yeah.
The original Bad Boys, he gets some points there. And there's something else I like a lot by him. What did he? Armageddon. Armageddon's a fun fucking movie. So I go Bay myself. Andrew, you go Bay or you go Snyder?
You kind of persuaded me over to the Bay side because like Bay will use his actors. He won't use them well, but he'll like play to their strengths. And Snyder's just going to slow-mo whatever you do. So why even give 20%?
Yeah.
You bring up a good point, actually. I think Bay does more with lesser actors than Snyder does with great actors.
Absolutely.
Like, the casting in these DC movies is not the problem.
Eric says to me, I didn't like Friday Part 6. By the way, but I like Armageddon. How do I leave this stream? You could just hit the button, or you could realize that Friday the 13th Part 6, Jason Lives,
is excellent.
It's a humongous piece of shit. And especially after coming off the heels of Friday 5, which is the best one of the bunch, right? Best one of the bunch. If you do not know out there, you can go to our YouTube channel, Pine of Comics. And since September of last year, Stu, myself, and Scary Larry Dwyer have been doing, there it is right there, have been doing the Friday the 13th film by film. And next week on Tuesday, join us because we are finishing it off we got one more after that. We are going to be doing Friday, the reboot. The stream will be the sequel to Jail Bizarro World. Yeah. No. Jason 6 is a total piece of shit. Let's get back to the Snyder cut though, because that's what we're talking about.
We segue a lot.
We do segue a lot. Lou, Snyder cut. Snyder cut.
Was
Easter
there a
egg,
question, or was that just
yeah, I was trying to think of how to. I couldn't speak for a second.
Were you in
Easter
slow mo?
Hold on, let me run like the Flash.
Yeah, it was a slow mo question.
Easter egg and or like I guess you could say maybe buried bit of the DC universe that they threw in there that you liked. What was something that was maybe a one-off line or a character? What was something in there that you picked out and said, "Oh, cool, that's cool."
I don't know if you consider it an Easter egg, but I really like the anti-life equation part.
Yeah, well,
I don't know if you consider that an Easter egg, but I mean, I don't think everyone's gonna understand what that means.
Right.
It's not like, so I go with that. I enjoyed that. When he said we found anti-life, I went, oh yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, I think well, I don't know how many casual people will watch this, but I'm sure a casual person won't get that for sure. Andrew, was there anything in this that was kind of like a mention or something that you thought was cool?
I liked the Ryan Choi bit.
Yeah.
That Cyborg's father works with Ryan Choi, who is a very prominent comics person, and from last time in Batman v Superman, where Zack Snyder just shot Jimmy Olsen in the face for no reason. It's nice to see him put a character in, show some restraint, and just let them have a happy little life.
Yeah, and the end had a nice little nod to the fact that he's going to become the Atom, where it's like he's the director of nanotechnology. That was pretty cool. Stu, anything in there that you pulled out?
Very small moment. Nothing draws your attention to it at all. But I did like when you see through the boom tube and you see Apocalypse and Darkseid and all his minions. You do see who I assume is Granny Goodness, and I like just seeing her there and not having any attention drawn to it. Just hey, you either know who this strange old lady is or you don't.
Right. What about the now? I don't remember if this was in the original Justice League. Was there a Green Lantern in the original Justice League?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, I couldn't remember.
Oh, you know what? The Starro Easter egg that somebody pointed out. That was cool too. That I didn't even realize until they
What the robot he
when
put on?
they had like the spider on the face.
Okay.
You know, when he was pulling that out, it's like, oh, and that I didn't even realize that at the time. But then when I saw somebody saw a post on like Instagram or something where somebody had it, I went, yeah, that was really cool. Like that one even went by me.
I don't know if there was a demon Easter egg. I didn't see anything, and nobody spoke in sonnets, so I don't think so. I don't think so.
I didn't catch anything, but that doesn't mean anything. I'm bad at Easter eggs.
Now, I didn't. I picked up the Ryan Choi thing. There was a couple things. I thought the Starro thing when he put that little spider on his face, that's supposed to look like Starro.
Yeah.
Oh shit! I just had a great thought and I lost it. Damn it! I hate when that happens. Man.
Blame me. I totally derailed you.
The harder you chase it, the harder it's going to be to get to.
Yeah, and let's be honest, it probably wasn't great, but it was there. So when we go back in, this movie has a lot of people in it, right? And you get some, you get people that have kind of been in and out of the other DC movies. We get Willem Dafoe for a little bit. I will admit, having not seen the Aquaman movie, I do like the way that they film underwater, but I do have a question about Aquaman's swimming abilities. Is he just a missile underwater? Like I always picture when I read a comic, I always picture Aquaman as still actually swimming, and it doesn't appear he swims in this. It just appears like he's been fired out of a torpedo tube.
You know what it is? It's those abs.
Is it the abs?
He can move his feet really fast.
He's just the power of that through the water.
It's the power of that 42 pack he's got.
Depends on how
that's why he takes his shirt off too. It reduces drag.
Yeah,
he shoots through the water.
I was actually really surprised. I don't know if you guys felt the same way, but like the ending of the movie when we get to now, they took that whole family out in Russia. That was obviously a part of the Whedon thing, right? Mm-hmm. Where they're living in like Chernobyl or wherever they're supposed to be. But one of the things I had a question on at the end was, were you guys surprised to find out that like the stuff like
the stuff was in this movie?
No. What about Vietnam, sir?
Ooh, the Green Lantern was a good Easter egg too. Sorry, it just popped into my head.
Well, we brought that up like a minute ago.
Yeah, I know, but I wasn't listening.
But now it registered.
I'm in slow-mo.
Losing slow-mo right now. Were you guys surprised to realize that like the whole bit with Aquaman like riding the Batmobile and all that, like like I would have thought that was Whedon stuff. Like, were you surprised that was actually Snyder stuff?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah,
from my man.
The Batman saying, what's your superpower? I'm rich. I was surprised that was Snyder. Yeah.
There was a couple.
There are moments.
There was a couple scenes that I would have definitely said that's got to be Whedon and his attempt at humor. And I was surprised that they were Snyder things. Yeah, my superpowers being rich and all that stuff. We got to see really quickly. Another cameo we get. Crispus Allen, who is going to be the Spectre eventually. He was with Jim Gordon. He was the detective with Jim Gordon before he went up on the roof. And then we get obviously J.K. Simmons again as Gordon. I would love to see him in a full movie as Gordon. I think he looks good. He's a great actor. Obviously, he's entrenched in the. He farts with enormous force of propulsion. Oh, okay, that's how. I read that comment. I'm like, what is he talking about?
J.K. Simmons, of course.
Here we go. Patrick is a DC guy, and he's an old comic guy too. FYI, Aquaman's mechanical swimming speed in the comics is 10,000 feet per second, or almost Mach 9. Wow. All right.
Damn.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
Aquaman.
Yeah, it's definitely good for Aquaman. And as Eric said before, he also rides a seahorse. That's very important to know, too. That's very important to know too. Andrew, was there anything flat out in the 4 hours, flat out, that you were like, shit, this is terrible. Why did they do this? This scene is horrible. Like just garbage time.
Absolutely. Oh, I've been waiting for this one. The Martian
Jesus.
Manhunter scene in the middle of the movie makes absolutely no goddamn sense. For some reason, if you haven't sat through the 4 hours for this, at one point in the movie, Martha and Lois Lane are talking about their grief. And at the end of that conversation, Martha walks out of the apartment and turns into Martian Manhunter. And there's some implication that Martian Manhunter wanted Lois to keep going and keep trying. Why? Why does he want to do this? Why didn't he show up as his other alias of of the general that Lois already knows and has had multiple interactions with? Why does he disappear for the rest of the movie and show up when everything is done? It made no goddamn sense to me.
Yeah,
It
Martian
doesn't work.
Manhunter and the rest of the Amazons don't make any sense because, like, you also live on this planet. So why are you just like, we're just going to let these 5 other heroes, they'll either save the day or not. We don't need to actively get involved.
The Amazons I kind of get because the Amazons like basically have a code of not interfering with the world of man.
Yeah, but they're still going to die if they don't.
Well, I think they look at it as if it comes to us, then we'll fight it again. But like, we're not going to go off this island. Bunch of lazy bitches. Let's be honest. All right, that's their problem. No, I'm kidding. But I think that's more of their answer. Matter of fact, it's actually funny you said the Manhunter thing because that was the thought I had lost. I read this and this kind of blew my mind. So apparently, that character, the actor is Harry Lennox. He played General, I think, Calvin Swanwick in Man of Steel.
Mm-hmm.
He was never intended to be Martian Manhunter. Apparently, it was a very popular fan theory that I read this, that Zack Snyder liked and made it happen. So, I mean, because, usually it's John Jones.
Mm-hmm.
John Jones disguised as Nick Fury. Kind of totally right. Kind of totally right. But, like, that kind of blew my mind that, like, during Man of Steel, this was never planned that he was actually Martian Manhunter. It was after Man of Steel and after fans started saying, that guy could be Martian Manhunter. That they went and did that. Like, so that goes along with the rest of this whole thing, where it was like the fans brought this movie back and made it happen. That they're actually also kind of feeding ideas into the creator's head, which isn't unheard of. I mean, if you ever watch Breaking Bad, there was an entire plot point in the very last episode of the show that tied up a lot of stuff that was a fan's input to the creator. There was a whole segment of the last episode that he couldn't wrap his head around. He brought the unfinished last episode to this young super fan who was dying and wanted to see the last episode before he died. The kid watched it and they had a conversation and he said, I can't figure out how to incorporate these 2 characters and this plot line. And the kid gave him an idea and he used it. So it's not unusual that shit like that happens. And that's also big points to what's his name, Vince Gilligan, for doing that.
Yeah,
because I'm sure if it was a terrible idea, no matter how close to death's door this kid was on, he might not have used it. But what he does do is he actively gives the kid credit for it. But like, it's also kind of weird that Snyder is like, on the boards at night going, this guy hates my slow-mo, this guy hates the flashes too, and he's like, wait a minute, this guy says that's Martian Manhunter. Like, let's make a 4-hour cut. Is actually, Eric, is that true? Did the dead kid's estate sue? Because now I feel bad if that's true.
I haven't heard. This is the first I'd heard any of this though, so I don't know.
Yeah, that's
Stu, you're a fan of Breaking Bad, right?
Yes.
At the end of and this is not a spoiler, but you know how he goes to his former college roommates that he created everything with?
Yeah, and Badger and Skinny Pete are outside. Is that what you're talking about?
That was all the fans'
idea.
Oh,
really? Yeah, that's a great scene. Yeah.
Yeah. What do we have? Robert Barron says, I assume Martian Manhunter with Lois was connected to the comment Batflick about Flash and Lois that just went way over my head. About Flash and Lois.
Oh,
I don't know.
So I think I know what this is. Flash, when he, in 2016, when he traveled through time, said Lois is the key. Make sure Lois gets there. Which is fine, but the thing is, Martian Manhunter has had no interaction with Future Flash that we know of. We don't know how he knows Lois Lane at all. So it's just weird that he pops up and says, I'm going to dress up as an old lady and have a nice tea with you. And then I'm just going to reveal myself in the hallway for some reason for anybody who can see. Yeah. What's going on?
Yeah, in the hallway. That was
right outside the door.
Why don't you get to an alley, dude? Like you've been on Earth for like what 500 years, and you know what the fuck you're doing. Andrew, anything else that was egregious to you, like really bad? Like what the fuck?
Honestly, I think. Yeah, it's honestly just the Flash scene for me, the hot dog. Those were the two that I was just completely thrown out. Oh, and a very minor point, when Wonder Woman exploded
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
the terrorist.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wonder
It
Woman with
traumatized
her
a bunch of
speed,
kids.
with her rope and her speed and powers, has 800 ways to stop this guy without killing him. But it's a Zack Snyder movie, so we're gonna kill him.
Yeah. Well, I mean, how did you guys feel about it? Because this is something I'm seeing some people getting a little bit, online a little bit ornery about. So in Endgame, obviously Thor kills Thanos, right? Cuts his head off. Aquaman puts the spear or the trident through Steppenwolf's back, throws him in the air. This motherfucker's going through a boom tube. He's going back to Apocalypse. But no, hold on. Wonder Woman's got to chop your head off first. All right. Lou, did you think that was unnecessary? Because a lot of people are like, she killed him in cold blood. Now, me personally, I know that Wonder Woman has and will kill if necessary, and I kind of get it. It's like we can't let this motherfucker come back again. But how did you feel about that? Were you bothered? I think a lot of people thought it was like unfair too. Like the guy's sailing through the air backwards, and she jumps in the air and chops his head off. Yeah,
I don't know. I think it's established with her, so it didn't really bother me. I kind of give it the Maxwell Lord rule.
yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just like she did what she had to do, and she's just making sure that he ain't coming back. So you got to look at what the guy did. He wanted to take over the planet, and this once again is Zack Snyder. So you kind of throw everything out the window. But no, I didn't have a problem with it.
That whole Flash visiting Batman from the future scene was just lifted from Crisis on Infinite Earths #2 because they thought it looked cool and it had to fit into the narrative. At least that's my theory. You're probably not wrong. I haven't read Crisis in a long time, but you're probably not wrong at all. Lou, while I'm with you, anything that really stuck out to you that was just like absolute shit that you were like, oh god, this is shit.
No. I mean, like, nothing really like made me want to vomit. You know what I mean? I kind of. I was gonna save this for the end, but I think my opinion on the whole thing is we're viewing the movie now when it was meant to be out like 5 years ago or 4 years ago. So you're looking at almost a time capsule of the DC universe. What everything was supposed to branch off from. So while, you know what I mean, like now, today, it doesn't make sense in a lot of ways. Back then, it would have made total sense. And the parts that didn't make sense probably would have been expanded upon in other movies. So I kind of give it that leeway, if you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So that's why it's like nothing really got me on it, because I just kind of view it as what it is. And maybe they eventually restore the Snyderverse and go that way and have all these movies, and then everything works out and you see the whole thing play out the way it was originally intended to. But if not, I kind of just, it's like going back and watching any movie 5 years. It's like going back and watching the first event, the first Captain America movie, or going back and watching Iron Man 1. You know what I mean? It's just you're watching a time capsule, so to speak. Guess that's the only way I can put it.
Makes sense. I get it. Yeah, because I mean, this movie does end, and we still have what 2 or 3 movies taking place after it. Like from it, like Aquaman is going off to. I'm going to see my father.
Yeah, because now you can see 2 different versions of how Aquaman met Mera for the first time.
Yeah, and that's the thing is they at the time DC Warner, because they were behind the 8 ball with Marvel, where Marvel had already done all the individual movies and they had established all their characters, and then they brought them together in the Avengers. DC's plan, because they had to have an Avengers, was to do the Justice League and then branch off into their individual characters. So like this was supposed to be the starting point of everything. And then from like you said, now we have 2 different versions of Aquaman because they scrapped this, and then Whedon happened, and then everything kind of went to hell, and then they rebooted once and then rebooted twice, and now you're like, it's just a whole confusing mess, kind of like the comics. But it eventually, I'm thinking, I kind of lost my point, but yeah, it became a confusing mess that they had. It became a confusing mess, and now this kind of exists in its own little pocket dimension. You know what I mean? Like the what could have been.
Right.
So like I said, that's why to me nothing really stuck out, because I just kind of put it over here and that's where it exists on its own,
I get it.
without any of the other continuity tied into it.
Has anybody either in the audience or any of you guys heard? I read this week, only in one spot, that in April, certain DC titles are going to $5.99, Batman included. Did any of you hear this?
I had heard that.
I've heard
that.
something about $6 single issues. Yeah,
I'm so fucking done at that point. If you're
yeah,
gonna,
no, I'm not even. I was not spending $4.99 on issues. I'm sure as hell not spending $5.99.
Remember when it was drawing the line at $2.99? I still
Yeah.
have the poster.
I have a poster in my closet.
Yeah, I still have the
Yeah.
poster.
A Subway footlong is cheaper, absolutely.
Oh my god.
And as we know, Stu loves the meatball.
I do.
On one of our first live streams, Stu wore an entire meatball grinder across his shirt. It was very appetizing. Stu, anything that pokes out at you that you were like, fuck?
Yeah, several things. We'd already talked about the entire epilogue. That was terrible. We already talked about the cast of The Wicker Man singing at Aquaman. I can't remember if we talked about this on the show, if it was something we were chatting about before we started, but the other one for me that did nothing was Cyborg going into the cyber realm and fighting an imaginary bull and a bear on Wall Street. And then he stalks a woman for a while and just creates money in her bank account. No movie. I didn't want any of this. I didn't need any of this. Get rid of all of that. It's so weird. And it just drags on. Like Cyborg just stalking this lady for a solid 2 or 3 minutes. And like I said, it starts off with him going to Wall Street and fighting a bear and a bull. And I just had no idea was Zack Snyder on acid for this scene? I don't know what's happening.
Yeah, it was definitely odd. Patrick brings up a good question. I'll go to Andrew first on this because I've heard this. I'll answer it myself. I don't think there's any way it's going to happen, but anyone think the Snyderites, the Snyder fans, will be able to force WB to give the universe back to Zack and proceed onward from his cut? Now, before I ask Andrew this, I do want to qualify this. We're in a very weird position because we have movies now in the DC universe that exist in this Snyderverse, and then you've got the new Batman coming out, which, obviously, if an older actor was playing Batman, you could say, oh, he's replacing Affleck, but this is like a year one Batman. So, like, is that a younger version of the Affleck Batman? It seems like Marvel is doing it right. Everything is streamlined. Whether you like it or not, everything is streamlined. Sure, okay, they're going back and doing a Black Widow movie, before she died. It's a prequel, all that, but it's all streamlined. Everything's in the same universe in terms of the movies. But these movies here, it just seems like everything is so buckshot. It doesn't seem like there's really much point to that. But Andrew, do you think that there's any chance that he comes back and does more?
I don't think so. I think as much success as the Snyder Cut has, if it doesn't translate to serious money for WB, and I don't see how it can in the current state, I don't see why they would have any incentive to spend another $30 million to start to make this. I'm of the firm belief that they're using the Flashpoint movie that will come up in a few years. At the end of usual Flashpoints, they can take whatever they want, whatever they like from different universes and smash them all together. So I think once Flashpoint comes out, they'll gauge what people like and smash it all and put it all into one playpen. And if they like some elements from the Snyder Cut, they'll put them in there. But I think the chances of giving Zack Snyder that level of control again, I just don't see how it makes any sense for them, given all the movies that got to come out, Black Adam and all of this, like, that will have completely different tones. Giving it to Snyder again? No, I don't think so.
Yeah, even Wonder Woman doesn't see a future as well in the past. Yeah, it's pretty true. Lou, I'll kind of change that question a little bit differently. Now that was a question of, do you think? Would you want to see Snyder back? Do you need that much slow-mo in your life?
I would like to see a unified vision, instead of what we're getting. So if that means giving it to Zack and having him be like the Kevin, Feige or Feige or however the heck you pronounce his last name, him being the Kevin, Feige of the DC cinematic universe, then so be it. You know what I mean? But having a unified vision and continuity across everything would make sense. Yeah, I know, unified vision, wrong publisher. I know.
Yeah.
I'm talking crazy, but it's like that's that's what I would prefer. Because then everything makes sense and everything ties in, and you know what I mean? Like, and I understand that, like you said, like it or hate it, that's how Marvel succeeds. They have their people at the top. They have one structure, a unified vision, everything works, and the shows and everything fit together. And, I mean, DC's been, like you said, I think so buckshot that having one person helmet, yeah, would be good.
All right. Patrick says, just like the comics, DC films are going to be obsessively preoccupied with resetting their own continuity every few years. Yeah.
Yeah.
DC is such a fucking mess, man. And
They are.
I
really thought when the new 52
with that said, they
ended,
need a unified vision in their comics too. But
yeah, I really thought when the new 52 ended and they brought in Rebirth, I was like, all right, things are going to get better.
It was for a little while when Rebirth first started, it was all working out. And then they moved to Burbank and they did that convergence bullshit.
Yeah.
And like they used to not be as guilty as Marvel of that constant number one thing.
Oh,
but
yeah.
Man, they're super bad at it. I was at Lou and I's comic shop, Boom Tube Comics in Southington, Connecticut, 1475 Meriden Waterbury
Turnpike.
You want to check it out? It's a great place. See Dan. But like I just saw like there's a new Suicide Squad #1. I thought there was just a Suicide Squad #1 like last year, and there might have been, but it's like it's maddening. Seeing what's going on with comics, that's a whole nother show.
Yeah, I was gonna say
we will have that show. We will have that show. But so Stu, would you want to see Snyder jumping in on this again, or are you like just give it to anybody else? Give it to anybody else.
So, do I want to see the universe given back to Snyder? No, not even a little bit. Do I think it's going to happen? 100% I think it's going to happen. I mean, you've seen what this vocal minority did to get this movie released. And everybody, I remember leading up to March, people were saying like, I just want this movie to come up so we can stop hearing about it. And I was like, no, this is only the beginning of what these people are going to constantly demand. Once this movie comes out, they're going to demand that it's deemed a success. They're going to demand that Zack comes back and be given control over everything. I'm convinced it's going to happen. I don't know if they're going to rework everything they have coming out after The Batman, because I think that's too far along to change. But it doesn't seem to me like they could still rework Black Adam and put it in this universe. They could still rework most of what they have later on their schedule and still fit it into this. I'm convinced it's going to happen. These people want it to happen. And I think they're going to will it into existence with their hashtags and their online bitching, man.
Yeah, I don't think I want to see it either. I have no problem with Zack Snyder overall. I'm actually looking forward to
Army of the Dead.
Yeah.
Army of the Dead.
Yeah, I very much want to see that.
Yeah, because you know what? It's nice when anytime you get a filmmaker that you might like or think is a good filmmaker who ends up in one of these like these, I don't want to say ruts, but like this constant thing. So like Zack Snyder has been off the board except for DC stuff forever. It'd be nice to see him do something different. It's very much like Michael Bay. What was the last Michael Bay movie that wasn't a fucking Transformers movie? Now, whether you like him or not, he's been in that Transformers thing for so fucking long that like, hey, it would be nice to see something like The Rock again. You could still do something like that instead of making like the fucking 19. Me and Lou like to joke. One of the greatest things about Transformers 2, right, Lou? What is one of the best things about Transformers 2? Is Optimus Prime dies in that one.
Optimus Prime.
There's like 7 scenes in the movie where the Transformers got to move his body, and the way they move his body is like all the helicopter Transformers, Autobots lift him up with cables, and then they bring him to a field. They drop him from like 800 feet in the air. Boom! And he hits the ground. It's like, this is your leader's corpse. Like, put him down with some love, Yeah, he's got the matrix of leadership in his chest. Put him down.
They just like release the cables and just out of the ground. Well, they drop him on the aircraft carrier. They drop him in the field. It's like 4 or 5 times. They just drop his corpse.
He comes back to life and he's like, "Why is my knee so fucked up? my knee wasn't fucked up before." All right, so that's the Snyder cut. I think we've talked about it enough. We got about 10 minutes left, so I think it's important. Let's talk about us now. So I'm going to go around again. We'll talk about Pint of Comics a little bit. We'll start with me because we didn't do too much of me at the beginning. So if you're a fan of podcasts, check out Pint of Comics. We are a pop culture podcast. We are heading to our 181st episode. We've been around for about 4 years. We do all different kinds of things. So if you've never heard it, please go listen to it. Last week's episode was what did we do last week? I am failing to remember. It was not Judge Dredd. It was holy shit. Well, we did Judge Dredd a couple weeks ago. The Stallone movie. This coming up week we'll be talking. Oh, last week was Scary Larry's Pint of Horrors. I want to say I'm proud of this episode.
Mom and Dad. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Very
Mom and
proud-
Dad.
Very proud of Mom and Dad because we did did you just debut Wolverine 181? Yeah. Last page of 180 actually, and then 181. So our last episode was our first of the new season of Scary Larry's Pint of Horrors. It's the episode that's out right now. And we did a movie called Mom and Dad featuring Nicolas Cage, which is about parents that suddenly, it's a horror movie, start killing their children. I had 2 separate friends that are listeners tell me that they couldn't listen to the whole episode because of us talking about killing kids. That's a fucking win. If we get people to shut our show off because we were like a little too real, that was a good thing. This week, our friend Holly is on. It's a Pint Movie Invitational episode, and she picked the 1985 film Tough Turf, starring James Spader, featuring Robert Downey Jr. So you got Ultron and Iron Man.
Oh yeah.
It's a strange movie. It's a lot of fun. That'll be out later in the week. And then again, I mentioned it twice before. Don't forget, next week on Tuesday night, Stu is joining me along with Scary Larry. We'll be talking about the Friday the 13th, 2009 reboot. And then we got a bunch of fun stuff going on. And Lou is part of the Pint. Lou has done. Is that the one with Aunt Becky? No, Aunt Becky's not in that one. The girl who's in it was from when she was younger. She was in the Escape from Witch Mountain movies. I can't remember. Kim Richardson is her name. And apparently, so she's in this movie Tough Turf. She was a child actress, and apparently she's most known now for being like one of the wives of Atlanta or some shit like that. So so check that out. And Lou is always helping us out. Lou has written articles for the website. He's been on the show. He's our video game guy. Lou, real quick, obviously COVID, staying home a lot. What are some hot video games you've been playing lately?
Oh, geez. Put me on the spot. I've been spending a lot of time in Assassin's Creed Valhalla. I really, really like that. I want to get in more into Watch Dogs Legions because they added multiplayer, so I can, play with my wife. I can play with my wife in that. There's a great game for the Switch that we got called Rogue Heroes. It's a roguelite. It's like a love letter to Zelda, but it's a roguelite game. That's fun as hell. Geez, what the heck? What else have we been playing? As I asked my wife sitting next to me. Yeah, no, I mean those are the 3 that spring to mind. Yeah, Watch Dogs Legions is going to get some heavy play now that the multiplayer got added. Oh, end of the month for the Switch, and it just came out for the Xbox yesterday. Retromania Wrestling.
Oh,
Fantastic! I got to get more into it. It's basically a throwback to the old 16-bit wrestling games of yesteryear. So that's going to get a hell of a lot of playtime, especially when it ends up on the Switch at the end of the month, and I can take it with me or play it on the toilet.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful.
Yes.
You'll get hemorrhoids that way, so don't sit too long.
Well, I mean,
I'm just helping you out. Lou and Stu were actually on an episode of The Pint not too long ago. Our first ever episode about wrestling. We talked about wrestling. It was a lot of fun, and we will be recording very soon our top 5 WWF, I say, superstars of 1980 to 89. So that'll be a fun
before they
show
got
to
the
do.
F out.
Before they got the F out, yeah. This is not the World Wildlife Fund. This is wrestling, motherfuckers. I like the fact that I said the Housewives of the wrong thing, and
3 people corrected you.
Eve and Joe both immediately go, Beverly Hills, motherfucker. So Kim Richards went from Tough Turf to the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. So Stu, tell everybody again about SWO Productions and about the new podcast coming up.
All my stuff shitty. Here's what I just realized after 2 hours of doing this. I just realized it looks like I have the Sword of Omen stuck through my head.
It kind of does.
But yeah, I have my website, SWO Productions. We have new articles every day, talk about pop culture, wrestling, Pop-Tarts, whatever's on my mind, really. And yeah, I do not have 101 episodes. I have 0 episodes, but I'm looking for possibly April 1st as the target date for the first episode of the Stu World Order podcast, where again, we'll be doing randomized, chosen comic book movies every episode.
Now, would it be, you don't have to say it here, would it be a spoiler or would it be a preview to tell us what the first episode is going to be covering?
All I can tell you, I will describe the movie. It is a kick-ass movie.
Oh, kick-ass. Cool.
Oh, Electro.
All right.
Bro, he's got investors. He can't let that out yet. There's stock prices that'll take a hit. Insider trading. He can't
you're
tell
going
you the first
for-
episode.
I think as opposed to the very overblown Pint of Comics, you're going for a different model of like shorter shows, right? Like 30 to 40 minutes or so?
Yeah, 30 to 40 minutes and twice a month. I think I'm going to do the 1st and the 15th of every month.
All right, I'm looking forward to it. Totally looking forward to it. Another show I'm looking forward to is a guy who is on the same. I always want to call it a podcast network, but they always remind me that it's not a podcast network. It's actually they do more than that. They do a lot more than that. It is go to www.forgottenentertainment.com. You can check out Lloyd and I's new show on the QT about all about the Quentin Tarantino universe. That starts on May 28th. I just watched Kill Bill for our recording this week, Volume 1. But Andrew from Brooklyn will be having his own show. Tell them all about it again.
Yep, yet another DC animated podcast. We're going through the 16 movies in the new DC animated continuity. We're going to start off with an intro episode, a tease, if you will, on May 31st. And then we're just going to go weekly 16 in a row. So if you've never watched them and you want to watch along with us, you can watch along every week or just listen to us describe them so you can know if it's worth your time or not. We might throw in a bonus episode about like a bad DC one, like Killing Joke or something along the way. But yeah, we'll try to throw in some surprises in there for you.
Are they all on HBO Max?
Not all of them.
Okay.
Yeah, some of them are. It's weird licensing things for some of these.
Okay.
All right, and what is the first one that people could jump in on right off the bat, like other than your teaser episode?
The first one is going to be Flashpoint Paradox. So we're gonna go back to the time Flash messed around, ran too fast, and messed everything up, and what it did to the world. So that'll be the first one. There's a lot of fun Elseworlds. If you liked the Nightmare epilogue, but if you want an actual story from it, this is Flashpoint Paradox in full.
So in Flashpoint Paradox, how much percentage of reach around jokes do we get? Like 30, none?
I think there is 1%, but the Joker is dead in this version, thankfully. So
okay,
there's no threat of Joker asking Batman for a reach around in this version. So you're safe. You're safe here.
All right, that's awesome. So the name of that, I'm going to put it across here. Yet another DC animated podcast. Check him out. Go to ForgottenEntertainment.com and check out all their shows. Our buddy Andrew Morgan, who does the Nomcast, which Stu and I, one of the little highlights of last year was because of COVID, I started a Letterboxd account and I kept track of every movie I watched last year, which for me, it was a big year. I hit almost 300, which, is a lot for me in 1 year. But easily, the episode Stu and I did of the Nomcast was the worst movie I saw all of last year. It was a little Netflix treasure called The Last Days of American Crime. It was. I'd rather get kicked, set on fire, and thrown down a flight of stairs than ever watch that again. It was absolute garbage. And if it's on Netflix, avoid it at all costs. But yeah, Andrew does the Nomcast. Mike and Mike do Forgotten Cinema, which is a great show. Mike and Patrick do yet another MCU podcast, and then you've got Mike is on like 6 of these shows. Mike Butler. Mike Butler also does Cracking One Open, where he talks about He talks about craft brews. He also does Two Player Bros, which Lou, you might really enjoy. It's all video game stuff. And then last but not least, yet another Star Wars podcast, another one of the yet another's. They just put out the Return of the Jedi episode, and I've been enjoying that the last couple weeks. So,
does he have time for anything else other than podcasts?
Yeah,
I can't imagine how.
Oh my God.
And he actually, he's been on our show several times. We talked about that once, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm thinking about 2 other podcasts." I'm like, I don't know, man.
This is like that one. This is like that single issue that Marvel did, where like they showed how Wolverine was on every team.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yes, this epilogue is longer than the JLA movie. I know. I want to give everybody their credit. Everybody that joined us tonight, all you guys, thank you for stopping in. Come back next week for Friday the 13th. Andrew, thank you for joining us tonight. Lou and Stu, thank you guys for being here. And until next time, this is Pine of Comics. Enjoy listening, and we'll talk to you later. Later, dudes.